And as the individual Green Bay Packers star Ken Ruckers, who introduced me to Bree and her group, as he stated in that meeting in June, vaccine injuries are rare and mild until one happens to you or your loved one. So again, I would like to introduce, I'm proud to introduce Ms. Breanne Dressen, who will tell you her story. And we'll hear from Bree a couple times today. Breanne.
Thank you, Senator Johnson, and it is truly an honor to be able to sit here with you and for you to, it's just been incredible to see how you've dedicated yourself, you know, against all the odds and the pressure to back away from the truth and to silence us like everybody else. And so we really, really appreciate you being willing to stand with us and fight with us.
Keep the mic as close as possible.
So my name is Breanne Dressen, and most of you have never heard of me, and most likely have never heard of most of us here. We're just everyday Americans. We are Republicans, we're Democrats, Libertarians, Independents. For us, this is not political. This is a human issue. We're here to tell our stories, ones largely ignored and silenced, and we hope that you listen, and we hope that you ask questions. I'm a wife and a mom, and I'm a preschool teacher. I suffered a life-altering reaction to my COVID vaccine on November 4th, 2020, almost a year ago to this day. I suffered a cascade of neurological symptoms that persisted for months. And while my life has improved, I still feel like I'm being electrocuted 24/7. For the first several months, I was totally alone. I kept my symptoms and my story completely to myself. I thought that this was an isolated incident. But in the spring, I started finding more and more like me. And before we knew it, there were thousands of us, all of us unable to receive medical care, recognition, either from the drug companies, the CDC, the FDA. We all suffered the same constellation of symptoms, which is very strange. It's a brand new disease. Nobody knew anything about this. We had it happen with all of the brands. Over 70% of us had had no previous existing health condition. Over 94% of us have not had any problem with any previous vaccine. 98% of us have had all of our previous vaccines, the vast majority of us even having our flu vaccines. We are not anti-vax. Also, because the CDC and FDA continued to ignore our pleas, our begging, we decided we needed to act because we started to see this happen to kids like Maddie. So from our sick beds, we sprang into action. We reached out to our elected representatives, both blue and red. We reached out to the COVID committee. We reached out to all of the representatives on the Health and Education Committee. If you have an elected representative in your state, they have heard from us. We also have been to the NIH. I myself was one of those lucky few to be able to go. We participated in studies across the country with very well-accomplished academics from reputable research institutions. None of them can get their research published. They go journal after journal after journal, being turned down one after the next after the next. We then reached out to the media, being repeatedly told that we can't make the vaccines look bad. We reached out to our major health organizations like the AMA. We reached out to our state health boards, our state health departments, all of them persisting in the narrative that if this was really happening, the CDC and the FDA would have said so. we are completely on our own. All we have is each other. We've been branded as anti-vax. Misinformation. 24 hours after Senator Johnson hosted our last conference, we had our Facebook support groups pulled apart. I lost contact with 8 actively suicidal people, just like that. So, after months of isolation, aggressive suppression, we began to connect with others, compassionate and concerned citizens, academics, physicians. They see the harms and they see what is happening to the injured and the lack of transparency in the race to vaccinate the world. We need the CDC to acknowledge us. A very simple act would change everything for the sick and suffering. We also need to just begin the conversation. This will lead to real healing for the injured, for appropriate and objective review of the science, to establish an environment for open dialogue, so ultimately we will be able to make rational and fully informed policies and decisions. Thank you so much for your time. I'm going to turn the time over to Dr. Wastilla.
Bree, let me just quick, I'll introduce Dr. Wasilla and also Dr. Doshi. 2 colleagues, Dr. Wastilla will be the person that introduces everybody else on the panel, but Dr. Wastilla is professor and Park Davis Chair of Geriatric Pharmacotherapy in the University of Maryland, Baltimore School of Pharmacy. Dr. Peter Doshi is the Associate Professor of Pharmaceutical Health Services Research at the University of Maryland School of Pharmacy and the editor at BMJ. So again, Dr. Wastilla will be introducing the rest of the panel members today. Dr. Wastilla.
Good morning, everyone. Oops, drop close to the mic. Okay. I'm usually a podium hugger anyways. Good morning, everyone, and really appreciate you, Senator Johnson, for hosting us today. And I really want to thank all of our speakers, especially the vaccine injured, because you are showing us your vulnerability and your courage, and you inspire me at least. My name is Linda Wastella. I'm a professor. I'm trained in pharmacy, public health, and health policy. I teach and conduct research at the University of Maryland School of Pharmacy, and my views are my own. Before I tell you a little bit about myself and then how the very credentialed scientists and clinicians came together, I want to describe the format for today. You are going to hear testimonies from 2 kinds of people. You're going to hear from the experts, the clinicians, the scientists, the lawyers, the patient advocates, and more importantly, you're going to hear from the vaccine injured. You're going to hear very powerful testimonies about their experiences. I would characterize myself, okay, thank you. Okay, closer. I would characterize myself as a successful mainstream researcher. I have a 30-year career. I have tenure, I've won awards, I've gotten big grants, I've published in big journals. I've devoted my professional life to using research to understand and improve access to pharmaceuticals to better the health of the populations, especially those vulnerable populations. Speaking today is profoundly uncomfortable for me. I prefer the quieter life of an academic. I'm not a media personality. And opposing public health policies is not something I ever imagined myself doing. But here I am, all because of a single announcement this past spring mandating all students, staff, and faculty at my school system to get vaccinated before returning to campus this fall. The announcement chilled me on a personal level, as the mandate impacted not only myself, but my 2 college kids, one of whom has a lot of medical conditions. It also concerned me on a professional level. How can a university system mandate an as yet unapproved product whose potential harms were still being studied? I reached out to colleagues, discovered I was not alone. This past June, a group of us, scientists, clinicians, and advocates, we filed a citizen petition to the Food and Drug Administration to express our concerns about the rapid mass rollout of vaccines, which were not yet approved. We dubbed ourselves CALM, the coalition advocating for adequately licensed medicines. In our petition, we didn't ask the Food and Drug Administration to pull the vaccines from the market. Rather, we outlined open questions about them that must be answered before granting vaccines full approval. We focused on emerging and unknown safety concerns impacting the general population, but as well as what we considered at-risk groups for vaccine problems, including children and adolescents, previously infected persons, and pregnant and nursing women. FDA denied our petition the same day it approved Pfizer's vaccine. And now, not only do we not have answers to our questions, but we have expanded mandates affecting federal and defense employees, private businesses, healthcare workers, universities, and public school systems, among others. We still know nothing, absolutely nothing, about long-term vaccine harms because the vaccines haven't been out that long. Indeed, 20 months in, we barely understand immediate harms from the vaccines. How can we possibly provide informed consent without this information? So today we stand or sit before you as individuals, and I want to reiterate, we are not an organization. Indeed, we are the epitome of grassroots. This all came together through word of mouth. And to be clear, absolutely clear, we are not opposed to vaccines. Rather, we oppose their mandated use. We are citizens who have done our civic duty, but when we experience serious adverse effects, we're left high and dry by FDA, CDC, the NIH, and medical professionals. We are scientists alarmed by the toxic environment in academia and scientific publishing. We are military leaders concerned about vaccine safety in the armed services. We are clinicians who want to treat patients harmed by vaccines, but whose practices are limited by their employers and professional boards. And we are lawyers and patient advocates seeking help for our injured clients and their families. We are the people you haven't heard from. And we have nothing, absolutely nothing, to personally gain from being here. Indeed, we have everything to lose, including our jobs, our titles, our livelihoods. But we don't intend to go away until we see some real change. Please understand, this is not a compromise to decide which is worse, the disease or the vaccine. Such a premise is myopic and ignores the people who serve the public's health and now require care they've yet to receive. I hope, we can all agree adverse events that disable and kill are not acceptable outcomes. I do believe we can do both. Provide vaccination, access to those who choose to be vaccinated, and we can assess the safety of these products in a rigorous and thorough fashion in order to provide safer treatments and protocols. Today, let's forget the tribes. Let's forget left versus right, red versus blue, politically correct versus politically incorrect. Let's forget vaxxed versus unvaxxed. We just ask that you listen. We aim to challenge the perspectives and things you believe to be true. In turn, we ask for you to challenge us. Thank you. Too close? No, you were close. Perfect, okay.
Everybody have the mic literally within about 2 inches of the mouth.
I'm also your MC for the day, and I'll be introducing individuals, our next speakers, in groups. And the next group of people that are going to speak are two individuals, one who's an aviation pilot, Cody Flint, and the second is Lieutenant Colonel Teresa Long, who is the brigade surgeon for the 1st Aviation Brigade. They're going to talk about vaccines and mandates and how they impact our national safety, as well as their personal lives. And I will then, and then we'll have another group of people. So thank you. Cody?
Good morning, and thank you, Senator Johnson, for this opportunity. My name is Cody Flint. I am a 33-year-old husband and a father of 2 young boys. I'm an agricultural pilot by profession with over 10,000 total flight hours. I have been very healthy my whole life with no underlying conditions. I received my first dose of the Pfizer COVID vaccine on February 1st. Within 30 minutes, I developed a severe stabbing headache that later became a burning sensation in the back of my neck. 2 days after vaccination, I got in my airplane to do a job that would take only a few hours. Immediately after taking off, I knew something was not right with me. I was starting to develop tunnel vision, and my headache was getting worse. Approximately 2 hours into my flying, I pulled my airplane up to turn around and felt an extreme burst of pressure in my ears. Instantly, I was nearly blacked out, dizzy, disoriented, nauseous, and shaking uncontrollably. By the grace of God, I was able to land my plane without incident, although I do not remember doing this. My initial diagnosis of vertigo and a severe panic attack, although I've never had a history of either of these, was later replaced with left and right perilymphatic fistulas, eustachian tube dysfunction, and elevated intracranial pressure due to brain swelling. My condition continued to decline, and my doctors told me only an adverse reaction to the vaccine or a major head trauma could have caused this much spontaneous damage. I've had 6 spinal taps over 8 months to monitor my intracranial pressure, and 2 surgeries 8 weeks apart to repair the fistulas. I have missed nearly an entire year of my life and part of my children's lives. Days of baseball games, playing in the backyard, and just picking up my kids to hug them have been replaced with being trapped in a sick body, doctor visits, invasive procedures, and more questions than answers. I don't know if I'll ever be able to fly an airplane again. This vaccine has taken my career from me and the future I have worked so hard to build. I have used all of my savings to pay medical bills and just to be able to survive. My family and I are on the verge of losing everything we have. I was and still am pro-science and pro-vaccine. The main issue rests squarely on the fact that the FDA, CDC, and NIH refuse to acknowledge that real lives are being absolutely destroyed by this vaccine. The federal government has yet to help a single one of the vaccine injured. It was my understanding that the federal government accepted the responsibility of helping people injured by this vaccine, considering they gave the vaccine manufacturers full legal immunity from people like me. The government has left us nowhere to turn for help. My family and I masked up, stayed indoors, and dodged COVID for over a year. We did what was asked of us by being part of the solution. That solution has taken everything from me and my family. We have been ignored and silenced. It is not right, and it needs to stop now. It is time for the federal government to do its part by acknowledging us and helping us. Does anyone really think it's fair to make the vaccine injured wait years for help? I think we can all agree that refusing or delaying the help we need is unconscionable. We urgently need this help. Thank you.